The first thing Nora Bennett noticed was the blood on the gurney wheels. It left a thin red line across the emergency room floor, like a signature of something violent that had arrived unannounced. The paramedics were moving fast, their faces tight with urgency, and on the stretcher lay a broad-shouldered man in torn tactical clothing, his skin gray with shock. Someone said he had been found near a marina outside Norfolk, Virginia, barely alive, 3 gunshot wounds in his torso. Someone else whispered the word SEAL, and the room shifted from busy to electric. Nora was only 3 weeks into her first job as a nurse, and this was the first time death seemed to be racing her to a patient's bedside. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet heroes who try even when they are afraid, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because people like this exist. Nora had grown up in a small Ohio town where her mother worked double shifts at a diner and her father fixed farm equipment. She had chosen nursing because she wanted a life that meant something on the worst day of someone else's life. Still, no textbook had prepared her for the sight of a trained warrior fighting to breathe. The man's name on the intake form read Marcus Hale, age 34. His pulse was thready, his breathing shallow, and his body was a map of bruises and salt water. The doctor on call, Dr. Victor Reyes, began issuing rapid instructions, and Nora found herself assigned to assist. Her hands trembled as she cut away the blood-soaked fabric. She forced herself to slow down, remembering her instructor's words that panic spreads faster than infection. The first bullet wound was high in the abdomen, the second lower on the side, the third dangerously close to the ribs. Marcus had already lost a frightening amount of blood. While the surgical team was being prepped, Dr. Reyes made a quick decision that they could not wait to stabilize everything in the operating room. One bullet fragment was causing internal bleeding that needed immediate intervention. Nora's job was to help maintain pressure, manage instruments, and keep Marcus responsive. What struck her most was how young he looked beneath the grime and stubble. Not a movie hero, not a legend, just a tired human being clinging to life. She noticed a thin chain around his neck with a small cross and a worn metal tag. She also noticed his hands, rough and scarred, the hands of someone who had trained hard and lived harder. At one point his eyes fluttered open, unfocused, and though he could not speak, there was a flicker of awareness there, a silent plea not to let go. Nora leaned close, encouraging him to stay with them, her voice steady even as her heart pounded. The first bullet was removed in a blur of concentration and controlled chaos. The second took longer, and the monitors complained with every drop in blood pressure. By the time the third was carefully extracted, Nora's scrubs were dotted with red and her mind felt like a stretched wire. But Marcus was still alive. Barely, but alive. He was rushed to surgery to repair the deeper damage, and only then did Nora step back, realizing how hard she had been breathing. She thought the night's drama was over. She was wrong. 2 hours later, while she was updating charts, 2 men in plain suits arrived at the nurse's station. They showed badges to the charge nurse, who quickly pointed them toward Nora. The taller one introduced himself as Agent Thomas Grant, the other as Agent Caleb Morris. Their expressions were polite but searching. They asked if she had assisted with the incoming patient from the marina. She confirmed that she had. Then came the question that tightened the air around her. They asked whether the patient had said anything, given her anything, or if she had noticed anything unusual on him. Nora replayed the moments in her head. The wounds, the chain, the tag, the look in his eyes. She mentioned the cross and the metal tag, which had been placed with his belongings. The agents exchanged a look. They requested to see it. When the small evidence bag was brought out, Agent Grant examined the tag closely. It looked like a standard, military tag at first, but on the back was a tiny engraving of coordinates and a date only a week old. The agent's calm demeanor shifted to intensity. They thanked Nora and left quickly, their footsteps echoing down the corridor. No one explained anything to her, and hospital policy discouraged questions. Over the next few days, Marcus remained in critical condition. Nora checked on him whenever her shift allowed. She felt a quiet connection to him, the way caregivers sometimes do with patients who arrive at the edge of life. She learned from his file that he had no immediate family listed, only an emergency contact named Jacob Turner who lived in Texas. She imagined the kind of life that led a person to have so few names on their form. On the fourth day, Marcus finally stabilized. He was still unconscious, but the danger had lessened. That same afternoon, the hospital buzzed with rumors. Something about a major federal operation. Something about a smuggling ring along the coast. Nora did not know details, but she remembered the coordinates on the tag and felt a quiet realization that the man in her care had been carrying more than bullets inside him. He had been carrying information, responsibility, maybe even the weight of other lives. A week later, Marcus opened his eyes for longer stretches. His recovery was slow and painful. He had to relearn simple movements, had to endure the frustration of a strong body temporarily broken. Nora often helped with his care, guiding him through the small milestones. She never asked about his missions, and he never spoke much about his past, but there was a gratitude in the way he looked at the staff, especially at her. It was the gratitude of someone who knew how close the darkness had been. One evening near the end of her shift, Nora learned from Dr. Reyes that the FBI had followed the lead from the tag and intercepted a large illegal weapons transfer offshore. Several lives, maybe many, had been saved. The date on the tag had matched the planned exchange. Marcus, even while wounded, had ensured the information would reach someone. He had trusted that someone would notice, by chance or by faith, that someone had been a rookie nurse who paid attention. Nora went home that night and cried in her car. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that small actions matter. Noticing a tag, speaking up, treating a stranger like a human being instead of a case. Her job suddenly felt heavier and more meaningful than any speech or ceremony could make it. Months later, Marcus was discharged and transferred to a rehabilitation facility. Before he left, he requested that a note be passed to the nurse who had helped the night he arrived. Hospital rules meant it was brief and screened, but the message was simple. It said that on his worst night, someone had fought for his life like it was worth something, and that he intended to live in a way that proved it was. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a second to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach more people who need a reminder that goodness is real. And before the ending, here is a special request. Comment where you are watching from, and one act of kindness you believe can change a life. Someone might read it and feel less alone. Years later, Nora would no longer be a rookie. She would become the nurse others looked to in chaos. But she never forgot the red line from the gurney wheels or the man who arrived between life and death. She kept a small cross in her locker, not as a symbol of religion alone, but as a symbol of responsibility, of seeing people fully. Somewhere in the country, Marcus Hale continued his life with scars on his body and a second chance in his pocket. Their paths rarely crossed again, yet on one stormy night in a Virginia hospital, two ordinary Americans had quietly helped save each other. One saved a life with skill and attention, the other saved lives with courage and information. And neither of them would ever truly know how far the ripples went.